hard to get and they might double text you, whatever it is, you'll get that validation for a minute. But because your identity is still rooted in anxious attachment style, not being secure, needing the validation, whatever it is, the second you don't get that validation again, you're an anxious mess. You've shifted again. And that was me completely. I couldn't hold that state because it wasn't truly who I was. And my beliefs were the complete opposite. And that is why self-concept work changed everything for me.
Welcome to Love Magic Miracles. I'm Alina GG, and if you're a soul-led entrepreneur who wants to make a big impact in the world, you're in the right place. And if you'd love to weave feminine embodiment into your everyday and quantum leap every area of your business and love life to new heights, then plug into these conversations with these inspiring thought leaders and hit subscribe, comment, and share with someone you care about today. Hello, it's Alina GG. Welcome to Love Magic Miracles, and I have a very special guest for you today. I have Candice Tamara. She's a trauma and mindset coach, and she helps people go from anxious to secure in love. Welcome aboard.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of this conversation.
Well, your work is truly inspiring, and there's not many podcasts that you can listen to that actually change your life and help you have a big transformation. And that's seriously why it's huge. I just touched on it then when I was speaking with you, and that's amazing. That's like your free content. I was just binging all the podcasts, and it just shifted my anxiety just from listening to your podcast and doing your masterclass. What one was that one I was speaking of?
The free masterclass, Becoming Secure You.
Amazing.
And the Fuck Trauma podcast is the podcast.
How long have you been doing that now?
The podcast? Actually, it's been a few years. And what's really nice, I get people tell me all the time about how it's really helped them. But what's really nice is it was really organic. It's probably the thing I've probably put less structure to or strategy to as such. I've had a lot of clients who have had really amazing results and they've just naturally wanted to share their story, which is great because it helps people to hear it. And then I've just naturally got better at sharing my own story or sharing things that my clients ask me or people ask me. And so it's just kind of evolved from there. And I love how many messages I get about the impact of it because it's incredible. It's something that's not overperformed or anything.
Well, from what I can guess and feel and hear is that your own journey in your childhood was difficult and then you had to find a way to deal with that pain. Is that right?
Absolutely. So I scored 10 out of 10 on the childhood trauma ACEs test, if anyone's aware of that. But essentially, it's all forms of abuse and neglect and abandonment. And so I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. There was a lot of toxicness, addiction, everything you can imagine, a lot of abuse. And as a result, I had a very unhealthy relationship with myself. And therefore, of course, all of my relationships are very unhealthy too, because I was very dysregulated. I had a really dysregulated mum, and I didn't have any coping mechanisms. I didn't know how to soothe myself, and I was very invalidated as a child. And that's what a lot of us experience. And therefore, we don't know how to regulate ourselves. And that turns into that anxiety. It turns into the behaviors that we have. And it sabotages our relationships and what we experience in love. And where I didn't have any good role models of love, I didn't really feel very loved by my caregivers and those kind of things. It meant that I had no idea, no healthy concept of what love was, if I was even worthy of love, or so many questions and so many things really shaped my younger years in my relationships and the anxiety that I felt. And of course, because I had really big, deep abandonment and rejection wounds, I had a very severe anxious attachment style. And learning that, and I was always determined to not be a product of my trauma. So I spent my whole life really trying to overcome my trauma. And then essentially now I realized, oh, I need to share this with the world because it took me a really long time to do that manually. And I want to be able to help people to do that a lot quicker because it is painful.
So as an adult, how did that start to show up in your relationships?
So when I was 24, I got married, really quite young for me. And I got married because I thought I was still living at home at that point and I was still very traumatized. I had no idea of the trauma I was even experiencing because I did have understanding, but also some parts of it was so normalized. When you've never experienced anything else, you don't realize. And then this person came along that gave me the affection and love that I guess was so missing inside of me. But then essentially it became a toxic relationship. The relationship completely mirrored my childhood in a lot of ways, as did all my relationships later on until the point I'm at now. And well, it makes sense now, but I didn't know it then, which is why I'm trying to educate people so much on how our subconscious beliefs that were formed in childhood create so much of the experiences that you're having and the perceptions that you're having in your relationships. So it's not a coincidence that your relationships literally are the same as your childhood relationships. The things that I was experiencing, I might have had a different form, but essentially it was the same thing happening over again, the toxicness of it. And so I forgot your question. So I went on a tangent. So
No, it's
basically, it started to show up in that relationship. It became toxic. And then the second relationship I had, of course, was avoidant. And I was highly anxious that whole time. But again, it was just another form, another mirror of the emotional unavailability I experienced from my caregivers in childhood, the abandonment.
just bridging on from abandonment. I hear you speak of self-abandonment, and that's a concept that comes up. What does that mean and how does that play out?
So everything in anxious attachment world is self-abandonment, unfortunately, because as a child, your first attachments are to your caregivers. So whatever relationship you have with them is gonna imprint on you, and you can look at different forms. I have so many people that will be like, "I had a really happy childhood, but I'm still really anxious." I understand that. Even small things can imprint on you as a child, and you may have one amazing parent that is so loving and gives you meets all your needs, but you may have one that's just a bit harder, and or you've had to be the good girl or the good guy. There's so many different forms of it, and that's why I always try and educate people on it. But essentially, if you experience this, then you have it. And as a child, what you have learned is to get my needs met for survival, because attachment is survival as a child, you have to abandon yourself. So you've learned subconsciously, because you have these beliefs that love is not safe for me, people leave me, people neglect me, whatever it is to get your needs met, my needs don't matter essentially. So you have learned to either people please or be perfect, and then maybe I'll get my needs met, or keep myself really small. It's all of these different ways that you've learned as a child, as a coping mechanism to get your needs met from your parents. But then what happens, because you've subconsciously just imprinted it, like that is your subconscious blueprint, as I like to say, you will do the same thing when you go into relationships. You will start to shrink yourself when you get attached to them, when you start to like them. You will start to perform for them. You'd start to please. You walk on eggshells. You have completely abandoned yourself. All of these are forms of abandonment. And when you do that, unfortunately, as what I have learned and what I teach now, is that it has no choice but to reflect that back to you, because everything is a mirror. So when you're abandoning yourself, they will have no choice but to abandon you too. And why I want to keep saying this to everyone, because what people realize is that they have so much more empowerment than they could ever imagine than trying to chase. Because what we do as anxious attachment styles, we try and chase them and force them, and all it does is push them away further, because it's like a magnet. But when you put the focus back on you, when you're filling yourself up and you're feeling really good and you're secure within yourself, it gives them the space to come forward and to rise and to be there. And so it changes everything when you realize that you have that responsibility with you to change it, and the energy completely shifts.
And then in that situation, if let's just say that person doesn't come forward, so if one person becomes more secure and the other person is still avoidant, does that just mean, does the relationship still have a chance? Does it need more space and time, or is it now a mismatch?
No, the absolute truth is that you may have changed yourself, but you haven't changed the story of them. So your beliefs are still piloting out subconsciously, because naturally we do, right? So you might have changed, I feel more secure, I feel good, and all of these things, but you keep looking at them saying they're avoidant, they do this. You're running an old blueprint from that for them. So what you have to do is change the story of them too. And when you do that, you will start to see a different perspective. Once you've changed the story of you and you change the story of them, you will start to see, wow, I didn't notice that. They started doing this and they did this and this is different. But because you're just automatically assuming from the old version of you that
Mm.
experienced that person, that's why you're getting it mirrored back to you.
And then if someone has been, like, let's just say anxious or even needy, and then they become more independent, even hyper independent, is that the other side of the pendulum swing?
Yeah, so hyper-independence, and I did this completely. I swung the complete other way, and we think that's more secure, but it's really not because it's masked by a thing of I don't want to be vulnerable. And so what you will do is get partners that mirror back the fact that they don't want to be vulnerable. They can't come close to you with intimacy because you literally have a wall up. And so when I was dating, I would get so many people with egos and they were afraid and there was no vulnerability. And it's true because I was not vulnerable. I was so afraid because I was so hyper independent. I don't need you. So you can't get a partnership from that. That's not a partnership.
Wow.
So
I
it's still
think
based in fear, basically.
so. So then the goal is to be secure, have your own life, but then both people connect and be vulnerable and co-create together.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you don't have to, secure doesn't look like you have your own life and you have to do everything separately. It just means that you are grounded in your worth, that you're able to set boundaries, you're able to say no, your needs matter, you're able to prioritize yourself and coexist at the same time with a partner that also cares about your needs, of course, because you care about your needs now. That's the problem. That's why it gets mirrored back, and you'll get partners that perhaps don't prioritize you or don't meet your needs because you're self abandoning them yourself and they have no choice.
Mhm.
So, when you start doing that for yourself, that's when you'll be able to have a healthy, balanced relationship because secure people they do care about their needs. They will look after their happiness first. And that doesn't mean that they don't care about their partner. They absolutely do. But they are not tired by this fear. They know that it's a balance and that emotional safety within themselves is very important for them to be a good partner, a good mother, father, whatever it is. You have to have that balance and well-being within yourself first before you can do it. And that's perfectly fine.
So what are some needs that you can have in life and in a relationship? Is it things like space and sleep and rest and alone time and food and nourishment and exercise, or what, and seeing your friends, or what other things could they be?
Essentially, they are what you've just said is essentially the essentials of what needs are. Another one, I guess, would be important for an anxious attachment style would be to be seen and heard and validated. And I think sometimes we have this thing where because we probably didn't experience that in childhood, we then are carrying that belief that my needs don't matter, I'm not heard, or I'm dismissed. And that was a big one for me that I had to get over. I will still do. And so those are some needs that can trigger us and make us feel abandoned or rejected. And then we act out from that place. But when we realize that, oh, this is just coming from that belief, then we can work to neutralize that belief instead. And then it shifts and it changes. And then you'll see it from a different perspective.
Can you give me an example of how that could shift to a different perspective?
So, for instance, if you have the belief that my needs don't matter, and what you will do, you will manifest a partner that appears to not care so much about your needs, or it's always about them, or it's more, they maybe dismiss you when you start talking to them about how important something is to you, and you feel dismissed. And inside, I know, is like this little girl that will feel really attacked by that. And even though the person won't be necessarily dismissing, it's triggering that abandonment wound within her that just when probably a parent did that to her, for instance. And actually, it's only because she's holding that belief that she is seeing it from that point of view and she's experiencing that trigger. So, whenever we experience trigger, it is just showing to us what is unhealed within us and that what we must believe to be true is what I like to say. So, when that happens, it's because we believe something about ourselves. So, when you start to shift that belief, actually you'll be able to come to a conversation. For instance, you might state your needs to your partner, and instead of feeling like whatever they're saying is dismissing you because it's triggering that part of you, because you've neutralized it, you'll be able to see actually they're not dismissing me at all, they are hearing me. And it will change like that because it's only the trigger that's stopping it from being anything else. We're
Mhm.
reacting from that place.
So we all have this inner child, and that is one of your tools, isn't it, to help people, like that inner child healing. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about what that means?
So The way that it's one of my most important tools that I've always used with all my clients is because when I was very anxiously attached, and I didn't know I was anxiously attached, but I was in a relationship with an avoidant, and any time that they had an argument, disagreement, which is all the time, they would need space and they would leave for a few days, or they would shut down or something like that. It was so freaking powerful. It was like I would turn into a child having a tantrum, if I'm honest, and it didn't make sense because I wasn't a child, but it was just the feeling inside your body, and anyone that experiences knows the feeling that I'm referring to. It's so horrible and uncontrollable. And then it led me to realize, oh, that makes sense. It's actually the little girl inside of me that was abandoned by her father, abandoned by my mom. It had nothing to do with this person wanting to take space for a second or go for a walk just to cool down or whatever it was. It had nothing to do with that. I knew I was going to be fine and whatever. There's no way that reaction just comes from that moment. It comes from something so much more, and the meaning and the pain behind it, and it's where she's reliving it. So one of my most important tools, and what really helped me with that as soon as I realized that, is I started to work with my inner child. I started to soothe her. I started to connect with her. I started to let her know that she's safe, and then most importantly, not abandon her, because that's what's happening, is that we abandon that little girl or that little guy inside of us so that this person doesn't leave us. But it doesn't work like that. That's not going to work. And while you're doing that, you're literally abandoning yourself. That's the feeling that you have inside of you. So when you stop abandoning yourself and you look after that little girl, you meet that girl's needs and you keep her safe, or him, or whatever then that self-abandonment stops and those triggers stop, and you stop experience those kind of things in those relationships. It's all you. Your partner is not the one that can soothe that little girl or guy. It's you. And that's one of the things I had to learn. So by doing that, the calm, the peace that comes from doing that is incredible if you've
Mm.
experienced it.
Well, I did definitely, and you're a couple of times, but definitely in that masterclass of yours. And I just think it's so important because otherwise it's like the little inner child is running the show for us. And as adults, if we don't face that part of ourselves, it's like it can do damage to others and hurt others.
Totally, and that's why it's called reparenting that child, because unfortunately, when we experience things in childhood, unfortunately, that child is not formed to be a child emotionally, and it didn't have its needs met in certain ways, for instance. So you can learn to do that for yourself, and that's how you become more secure. Even though maybe you weren't able to receive that from other people, you get to do that now as an adult, and we absolutely must be the ones doing it. It's not fair that we have to do it or have to do this work, but we must do it, because otherwise your relationships are just going to be that complete. You're going to be anxious all the time. It's going to be the push pull. It's horrible. It's horrendous. And that little girl or little guy inside of you is feeling that pain, and it's not nice, as I'm sure
Mhm.
you're aware.
And so, just going on to other tools that you use, so you've got your EFT tapping and your nervous system regulation, and also your self concept. Did you want to expand on one of those?
Yeah, so EFT tapping is also something that I love, because that anxiety that we feel is our nervous system that doesn't feel safe, essentially. Whatever it is that's happened, it doesn't feel safe. And so by doing EFT tapping, it allows us to calm our nervous system, but also rewire new subconscious beliefs. And it is your subconscious beliefs that are being triggered. It's your subconscious beliefs that you're experiencing in your relationships. So EFT tapping for anyone that's anxious is amazing, because it will soothe you, and then you'll be able to take the new beliefs in. And especially if you're a words of affirmation person, it's just great. I just love it. And that also works with the self-concept. Self-concept is really what you believe about yourself to be true. How you see yourself is how people will treat you. So again, you can use EFT tapping, and I often do, to rewire self-concept as well, because you're just creating those new subconscious beliefs.
Great. Wow. And I heard that interview you had with, is it Brad Yates? That was fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah, Brad Yates is amazing. And actually, if you've ever experienced EFT tapping, when I first learned it a few years ago, I was like, "Oh, this doesn't do anything. It looks so like, what are you doing? How can it do anything?" But as I've gone through the last few years and figuring out things that work for me and seeing the results, EFT tapping is life-changing for so many more reasons than you can imagine. It is not just calming your anxiety. If you commit to doing it for 21 to 30 days, it will reprogram so much within you that you will literally see massive shifts in how people treat you, in experiences that you are having, whatever it is, money, business, whatever it is, it will all start to shift. You will feel shifted in yourself. You will not be so triggered. You will feel so much better within yourself. It is literally life-saving. But the problem is that people do not do it consistency. They do not commit to the 21 to 30 days because there'll be a little person in them, a little fear, and I've done this, that's like, no, don't worry, just stay as you are. And they don't push through. And that's why I'm always trying to tell people, push through. Even if you're feeling better, you are rewiring layers of your blueprint by doing it consistently every day. It will change your life. I cannot tell people enough. So Brad was a massive part of helping me to use that. And I just loved it because he's really great. And like I say in my podcast, I used one of his tappings every day when I was manifesting my partner, and it worked. It was brilliant.
Wow, that's great. Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh my gosh. What else have you seen as a sort of a common thread with your clients, a challenge they have or something you help them overcome or a shift? Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
So what sort of other sort of common threads have you seen presented with your clients that come to work with you? Is it just they want to improve their relationships or they're feeling anxious, or is there something else?
No, so essentially, yes, it is always on the surface is always that they want to come and improve their relationships. They want to keep attracting emotionally unavailable people, or they can't get people to commit to them. They're in situationships after situationships, or they're in a relationship, but they're just constantly in a push-pull cycle. They are very common things. But when they start doing the work, what they realize is it's all coming from them. And then it completely shifts their whole relationship with themselves, which is incredible. And which is why I always say it's never just about relationships. A lot of them have better relationships with their family then at that point, or with friendship groups. You know, their whole being changes. So whether it be career-wise, they make different decisions. All the fear kind of starts to come off them because it's anxious attachment style completely impacts every area of your life. It impacts everything that you do all the time. So they may come for relationships, which is great. They get wonderful relationships out of it too, engagements, weddings, family, whatever it is. But I think the biggest difference that they all say is just, it changes within them and every part of their life, which is incredible.
Wow. And so your main signature program, is that 8 weeks or how does that work?
So my main signature program is Anxious to Secure and Love now. It is self-paced now. It was a program that was run live, but because I ran it live so many times and the results were so great, now I just allow it to be self-paced and people can work through it. So there's no timeline on it. People can take as long as they like, but it is all of my teachings in it. It's everything that I've taught, everything I would use with a one-to-one client. It is everything. It covers self-concept, it covers inner child, everything, EFT. So it's however people want to work through it. And it's really important to do that because some people want to go faster and some people want to go slower because some of this stuff, it can be a little bit emotional when it comes up. Some of this, everything I do is never surface level. I do not do anything surface level at all.
Yeah.
Always do the deep stuff from childhood that go back to really shift it. And that's why my programs get those results. It's more important to me to do that, especially because of what I experience. I know that that's exactly what needs to happen. But it can be a little bit confronting and not everybody is always ready for that, but they work through it and they take their time and they get there and it's amazing. And then everything shifts.
I guess everyone's on their own journey and they've got to find the right time to do that type of work. It's got to feel like the right time for them, I suppose. Can't make someone else do it. We can only be responsible for ourselves, really.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And I trust that when people are ready, they will do that.
So what else are you working on? Have you got anything else or you've got some one-on-one clients as well or?
I have one-to-one clients, but mainly now I focus more on my other programs, my masterclasses that I'm doing now, and more like my podcast and YouTube, trying to spread the word to the masses rather than so much one-to-one. But I do work with some. still.
And I love your sort of mindset, what you've learned around mindset and how you share that. That is just so inspiring. Who inspires you with your mindset work?
That is a good question. I don't know that I have one person. I would say that I wouldn't say I have anyone necessarily right now. I think that my mindset now is just many years of books and feeling like somebody resonates with me for a time period and then they don't anymore, and then I move on to something else. Back in the day when I first started, I used to be very much into Tony Robbins and things like that, into
Yeah.
self-development. But for me, I always talk about this as my archetypes, which from my masterclass, I was the fixer archetype very heavily from my childhood of being a caretaker to everyone and my mom and things like that. And so I was obsessed with fixing myself from my childhood and fixing everyone else around me. So it was a very big imprint I had to get rid of. And so self-development, my whole life has just been something I was determined to do because I thought I had to fix something. And what I really had to do was realize, no, everything's fine. You can reprogram these things, but also at some point you're enough. You don't have to do that. So I don't know. I can't answer one person that was for my mindset. I would say I've had lots of people that resonate with me at different points of time. And that's why I always say to anyone, if they feel inspired to listen to something of mine or somebody else's, trust that they are there for a reason. Because I know that when I've needed to hear something, that person pops up in my life and I hear it then, and then I go on and I do other things. And so even though something I might say might be triggering, because I'm never afraid to say what people want. I don't say what people want to hear. I say what people need to hear.
Yeah.
And I say it with such certainty because I know it. I've lived it, but like that it's triggering for people. And I know that is what people want to hear. It's not comfortable always. And I get that. And I'm okay with being that person for them. But ultimately, I always say, like, you've come here for a reason. You are ready to hear this, even if you don't realize it. So just let it be. And if I have to be the person they're triggered by, then that's fine. It's always with love and always because I want them to grow and to realize that for themselves.
I do appreciate your authenticity, and there's so much out there about sort of game playing and strategies and relationships and dating and all of that. And it's like, can people just be themselves? But is that enough? Or is that because men and women are different and maybe there needs to be some kind of enticement or magnetism? Or if you're just straight up, is that boring or there's no mystery? Or what do you say to all of that?
Well, I've definitely been there. I've read the books, Why Men Love Bitches and all those things. And at one point in my journey, I was like, this is how you do it. But really, I'm so against those things now because they're not coming from security. They're coming from fear still. And they are still, their beliefs that you're imprinting in you, they're going to get that mirrored back and it's not going to be good. So you might get the validation for a minute. They might play it hard to get and they might double text you, whatever it is, you'll get that validation for a minute. But because your identity is still rooted in anxious attachment style, not being secure, needing the validation, whatever it is, the second you don't get that validation again, you're an anxious mess. You've shifted again. And that was me completely. I couldn't hold that state because it wasn't truly who I was. And my beliefs were the complete opposite. And that is why self-concept work changed everything for me because I truly became that person. And what's really interesting is when I became that person and I shifted all those beliefs that I'd had my whole life, actually, all of those things those books tell you all those things to be, I know I was never trying to do it. It was just natural. And it's how I see other secure people that I might have in my life, friends or whatever. It's just natural. I was grounded in my self-worth. I made decisions that was best for me. I wasn't trying to prove anything or please them or any of that kind of thing. And so therefore, it was just natural. It wasn't a thing of trying to get anything because I no longer needed anything because I'd given it to myself. And that was game changing. When you are your authentic self, you are literally a magnet. The only thing that stops you being a magnet is when you're putting up a wall or you're coming from fear or you're overthinking something. When you're doing that, you're not your authentic self. And so you're going to get resistance in return. And you're going to see that in people and it's not going to be you're not going to get anything you want. When you learn to just sit back and be like, this is who I am. I accept myself because that was a massive thing I had to do was like, I love and accept myself unconditionally. And therefore that's great. And then when you realize that everything becomes easier, effortless.
Mm. Wonderful. That is great. Is there anything else you would like the listeners to know?
Not really. Ultimately, I guess I always just want people to realize that they are enough and they are worthy and they always were. And that is, I guess, my purpose and what I'm here to do is always just like, please just come back to yourself and realize that you are already it. And everything will shift. All your problems are just coming from thinking that you're not that, and you are. And so just always want people to realize that. And I will spend my whole life trying to get people to realize that, because that was a journey I had to go on completely to become who I am now, and still do have to. But that's all. Is there anything that you thought, or anything else that you think you'd like to ask, or that people would want to hear?
Oh, the concept of feeling chosen. How do we build that within ourselves and our relationships?
So being chosen is a massive one, and it was a massive one for me that I had to change. And when I did change it, my relationships really shifted from that belief alone. It was huge. But essentially, you build up the belief, first of all. So you had a DM recently and they were like, oh, I don't believe I'm chosen. I get it. I didn't believe I was chosen either. I had this much evidence to show that I was never chosen, even as a child. But by doing that, you're literally carrying it forward into your future, and you are still continuing to manifest more not being chosen. So you don't have to believe it. You just have to decide, I'm chosen. Keep repeating that to yourself. I would repeat it all the time. I'm chosen. I'd look in the mirror every day. I am chosen. Even if I couldn't see the evidence, you have to build it within yourself first. You have to do that. And then the second thing I would say is you have to start choosing you. So I know that is very difficult when you've never chosen yourself. So first, just start practicing affirming I'm chosen, and start to be, because when you do that, you will enter the state of being chosen, and it will start to get easier for you to start choosing yourself. So what will happen is that you'll get presented with a situation, and it will no longer, you might have done something, not chosen yourself in that situation previously, but now you might stop, because you'll feel this feeling inside of you that's a bit like, this doesn't feel right anymore. And that's because you've been affirming something different. You've entered a different state. And so at that time, you have a choice. Am I going to be a chosen person, like I'm saying, or am I going to go back to my old self? And in that moment, if you choose to do the one of I'm chosen, I'm going to choose me, right then you are shifting into that identity. And the more you do it, that will be the normal for you. And people will just start choosing you. It has no choice. It will just start happening no matter what. So it's just building that belief and just starting to practice choosing you. And then you will see people doing that back in return.
Wonderful. Wow, I feel like we could just there's so much there. Oh gosh, and how can people best find you and work with you then?
So on Instagram, I'm at Candice Tamara _ I can give you any links that you
Yeah.
need as well, and website www.candicetamaracoaching.com. And there's lots of different ways. I have masterclass. I have a free masterclass, Fuck Trauma podcast, and of course, I have Anxious to Secure in Love, which is for anyone that wants to do the full method.
Right, and you help men and women, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just women, but it's not. Like, I've had so many men clients and I have so many men followers, because attachment trauma is gender neutral. It's from your parents, it's from your childhood. So it's not just women at all.
Awesome. So good. The world just needs as much of you as they can get.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Your kindness is wonderful. Thank you.
My pleasure. Well, thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much for listening. It means a lot to me. These conversations are having such a positive ripple effect all around the world. So if you really enjoy them and want to spread those good vibes, please remember to subscribe, comment, and share with someone you care about today.